Turkish community into a unified position behind a solid investigation. They know that the world is watching, and they want a solid, competent investigation. They want the police to be competent and show the world that Turkey can carry out something as high profile as this case. President Erdogan's comments, it might have been seen as abroad as not living up to some of his comments, but in terms of revealing the truth of what has happened. However, I think that people following Turkey and people in Turkey know that this president likes to be a bit boisterous, perhaps, and it's not completely surprising that we haven't had any sort of massive reveal. He has, however, put a lot of what had been leaked by Turkish anonymous sources into news outlets on the record, and not just on the record, but by the top official of this country. So that is significant, that we now know that President Erdogan has backed what has been leaked in terms of the investigation. So the question now will be, who will be held accountable, and will President Erdogan go against the Saudi Crown Prince?
Journalist Christina Jovanovski there. Now, the US President Donald Trump has threatened to build up America's nuclear arsenal until other nations come to their senses. It comes after he said he'll pull out of a landmark arms control treaty with Russia. Moscow says it will respond in kind if the US begins to develop more weapons. Luke Barber has the latest.
President Donald Trump's vow to bolster his country's nuclear arsenal sees an escalation of the US and Russia's war of words barely seen since the height of the Cold War. After Trump threatened to leave the 1987 Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the Kremlin said it would respond in kind if Washington begins to develop more weapons.
Russia has not adhered to the agreement. This should have been done years ago. Until people come to their senses, we have more money than anybody else by far. We'll build it up until they come to their senses. When they do, then we'll all be smart and we'll all stop. They have not adhered to the agreement. It's a threat to whoever you want, and it includes China, and it includes Russia, and it includes anybody else that wants to play that game.
The Cold War-era treaty banned medium-range missiles, reducing the perceived Soviet threat to European nations beyond the so-called Iron Curtain. However, Trump is convinced that Russia is not honoring its side of the deal. US National Security Advisor John Bolton, who is holding talks in Moscow with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, had previously pushed the president to withdraw from the treaty, citing Russia's development of a new cruise missile as a violation. However, he was told the withdrawal would deal a serious blow to the non-proliferation regime. Moscow has warned that it will take steps to maintain the balance of nuclear power.
If something like this happens, the world will be on the verge of another round of confrontation. I'm afraid to say, the verge of war. This wouldn't be desirable, and the responsibility of every politician on the planet is to avoid war and to make sure that the conflicts that do exist are peacefully resolved. This is the meaning of today's politics, and if someone acts differently, then he acts against humanity.
The treaty, negotiated by Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, banned ground-launched missiles with a range of between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. Analysts say abandoning it would mark a significant setback for arms control. Luke Barber, Euronews.
Still to come, a special report from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where recent violence has stopped health workers fighting an outbreak of Ebola. That story and more after this break. Welcome back. A reminder of our top story. Turkey's president says the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was planned days before his death and that everyone who played a part must be punished. In an unprecedented address to Parliament, Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for the suspects in the case to be tried in Turkey. Now, some of the biggest names in science are pleading for a deal on Brexit to avoid damaging British and European research. In a letter addressed to Theresa May and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, 29 Nobel laureates called for the flow of people and ideas across borders. Fears that Britain will crash out of the EU without a deal have highlighted after the British Prime Minister dismissed demands from Brussels for a separate backstop agreement for Northern Ireland. Well, joining me now is our science correspondent Jeremy Wilkes. Jeremy, what does a no-deal Brexit mean for Europe scientists?
It's a very, very bad outlook for scientists both in the UK and in Europe. And this letter, 29 Nobel laureates, 6 Fields Medals winners, that's the most prestigious prize in mathematics. It's got to have a bit of weight. What does a no-deal Brexit mean for them? It means that at the moment, lots of scientists in the UK and European scientists working in the UK benefit from grants that they get from the European Union. Under various different framework programmes that last several years, they receive a lot of money. Let me give you a bit of a few figures here. Between 2007 and 2013, the UK was the second largest recipient after Germany and received 6.9 billion euros out of a 55 billion euro budget. So that gives you an idea of the amount of money that's involved and has been involved in the past. In a no-deal scenario, the UK government might continue the grants which are existing in